I am not the best at being consistent with writing. I oftentimes go months without doing it at all, which means that I am often very behind. But I decided that I wanted to try to get a little bit better at that. So let's try and find myself a writing schedule that works. And it just so happens that I found a writing schedule on Instagram, which has kind of gone, I wouldn't say viral recently, but everyone seems to know what it's from. And that is the writing schedule of one Ursula K. Le Guin. If you're not familiar with Ursula Le Guin, she is an award-winning American speculative fiction author. She wrote the Tales from Earthsea series. She wrote a lot of sci-fi stuff as well. That was how I first discovered her. And I want to try her writing schedule because it seems a little bit intense, but we're gonna give it a try because I've got some free time. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, so we're gonna do it and we're gonna try our best and we're gonna see how it goes. I will see you all tomorrow morning at 5:30 sharp. Ursula Le Guin's schedule begins at 5:30 a.m. with the instruction to wake up and lie there and think.
What would all of you be thinking about if you have to lie for 45 minutes and just think? I personally have been thinking about the economic situation that we find ourselves in. I don't know if any of you can understand that reference, but if you do, let me know. Because I'm curious to see how many people in that fandom overlap with having watched this video.
In all seriousness, I was thinking about my plan for the day and what I was going to be working on this afternoon, so really not that interesting. Our next instruction is at 6:15 to get up and eat breakfast. Lots. So that is exactly what I did. Okay, it's time to start writing for the day. My hair is damp now, don't worry about it. I actually have to move on to one of my backup projects because my main work in progress, which is my Hallmark movie inspired Christmas romance novel, recently sent that off to my editor for some of our final rounds of editing before I self-publish it. I'm gonna instead be working on a work in progress of mine that is a fantasy novel, which is sort of inspired by primarily Narnia books like The Silver Chair and The Horse and Its Boy, kind of very much sort of a quest novel. Let's dive right in. As I was rereading what I already had worked on for this project and then got started working on it, I realized fairly quickly that this wasn't the right project for me to be working on today. I honestly did not have a lot of ideas for it, so I had to switch gears and start working on something else. It's been about an hour since I started working on writing. Now I am going to be working on the sci-fi novel that I've been working on. I feel like I have ideas for that. I feel like that's something that I want to work on. It's more fresh in my mind. We're switching projects, which is fine. It didn't say you couldn't switch projects. It just said we're supposed to write until noon. Working on my sci-fi novel went much smoother than working on the fantasy project. I felt the ideas were flowing. I knew what I wanted to do, and I felt like I was making really good progress. We are about halfway through our writing time. It's about 9:45. I think it's going well. It's different for me because typically when I'm working on writing something, I will have the mindset of, I'm gonna write until I get to this many words, or I'm gonna write until I get to this many pages. But this, like, just sitting down and being like, I'm gonna write for this long is, it's different and it's tiring, which I think is why I wanted to switch after writing for like an hour of the first book to switching over to writing my sci-fi novel, because I was getting bored of it. I would like to at least finish the first chapter. That would be good, I think. I think it's good to have set goals for myself for length of writing rather than time of writing. That's what I'm discovering from this. Honestly, the choice to write a sci-fi novel rather than my classic fantasy novel that I was working on seems like a good choice, simply because Ursula Le Guin is someone that I discovered through her sci-fi work rather than her fantasy work, so it seems very on theme. All right, party people, that is the end of our writing section of the day. It's time to dive into lunch. I think that went really, really well, and I have a few things that I think learned from that style of writing, the style of like sitting down and then writing for 5-ish hours straight, which I think was quite helpful because you kind of have to get into the specific mindset for that, which I'll talk about a little bit as I'm having lunch. First things first. When you're writing something where you give yourself a specific deadline for how much time you're going to write for, instead of saying, well, I'm going to write this many words or this many pages, you inherently get into a position where in order to keep writing, you have to kind of just write without thinking about it. It doesn't have to necessarily make sense. It doesn't even have to necessarily be cohesive or have any sort of continuity, or you can have many things missing from it. Just as long as you keep writing, that is all that matters, and you can go back and edit it later. Number 2, when you're working on something and you haven't come up with names or places, it's okay to just put in a place marker. That's what I was doing a lot today when I was writing. I wouldn't have the time to come up with names because for me, names are really important, and I really want to make sure that the names that I choose are meaningful. Oftentimes I turn to linguistics or different things like words in different languages that mean basically some foreshadowing for what this is going to happen. So if you're trying to get stuff done and you want to just continuously write, just put in some placeholders and you can replace it later. And number 3, try not to get into your own head too much about it and just let it flow. There was a lot of things that I was writing today when I was writing for 5 hours straight that I had not even planned on. There were characters that were developing in ways that I had no idea. I had super complex characters that I was creating backstories for as I was writing that I had not planned at all for. So if you just let things go and you just write, then you can oftentimes see this really natural flow of progression coming. So I can see why this is a style that Ursula Le Guin enjoys for writing, because it's a good way to just let the ideas flow naturally and let the worlds develop naturally. It is now 1 o'clock, which means it's time for 2 hours of reading and music. I am going to, I think, start with just listening to some music because I've been looking at words for all morning. So I think I want to take a little bit of a break from that. I have a few songs that I found on Instagram that were being promoted that I want to check out. So I think I might do that for a little bit of time, and then I'll dive into reading. I won't be able to provide much commentary on that because all of it's going to be copyrighted. It has been about half an hour, and I'm gonna dive into the reading portion of this period of the day. The music is not totally gone though, because I am gonna be playing some music in the background for myself while I'm reading. And what I'm reading right now is I'm rereading Dracula. I read years ago, but it's been a while, and so I want to read it again with sort of like a new view on it. The other reason I want to reread it is I don't know if any of you have heard of the podcast regarding Dracula. It is a podcast that came out last year. Basically, Dracula, if you don't know, is an epistolary novel. It's told through letters and journal entries, and all of them are dated. So this podcast regarding Dracula is basically a radio drama of Dracula, but they release them on the days that each letter and journal is written, so it's released in real time. And I listened to it as it was coming out last year, and it was so good, and the voice acting and the sound editing is incredible. So if you're interested in that, they are re-releasing it. I saw they've like hidden all the episodes and they're re-releasing it the same way that they did last year, with sort of each one being released on the day that it would be coming out. Totally check it out, because it's just sort of started again, I think. A lot of the episodes are very short. I highly recommend. I cannot recommend enough. It is so good, and it's going on right now. Congratulations, you guys revitalized my interest in this book. And maybe I'm reading this also for a different reason. You'll all just have to wait and find out. Hot take, but reading Dracula in 2024 is actually like reading a comedy, because obviously we know that Dracula is such a staple of vampires in media, but Jonathan Harker and anyone who read this book when it came out would not know that. So seeing this main character go, all of these people keep talking about the legends of vampires who live up in the hills. I should ask my friend Dracula, who lives up in the hills, about these myths. It is 3 o'clock, so it is now time to move on to correspondence and maybe house cleaning. Well, I don't have that much correspondence to write, by which I mean any, but I do have some things that I do need to make up that I will have to send to people. My editor asked me to send her a document of basically inspiration for how I want the cover for my Hallmark movie inspired Christmas romance to look like. So I'm gonna work on finding some images for that, some inspiration from book covers. I'm thinking I kind of want to take inspiration from Hallmark movie posters, because it is meant to be Hallmark inspired, but it's also meant to be cheesy and kind of making fun of Hallmark movies at the same time. So we're gonna dive into that a bit, which isn't really correspondence, but I will have to send it to her, so maybe it will be. And as for house cleaning, this is where the multitasking is gonna come in. I already put in a load of laundry and I've got more laundry I need to do, but we're gonna time that out to whenever I can. The next couple hours were spent going through stock websites and looking up pictures of different romance covers and Hallmark movie posters to get some inspiration. And I think I got a good batch of stuff. I won't have the actual cover ready for you by the time this video comes out, but who knows? Maybe I'll have announced the title at the very least. It is now 5 o'clock, which means it is time to have dinner, which apparently goes until 8. It does not take me 3 hours to cook and eat. I'm gonna be honest. All right, guys, I've got my pizza, my dinner. So I'm gonna do a little bit of a recap, I think, at this point, because the day is pretty much over. I have dinner on the schedule until 8, and then after 8, it's just be stupid. So it's like whatever you want to do, I guess. I honestly think that it wasn't the best for me personally, but I can see the value in this kind of schedule. This is the kind of schedule that is only feasible if writing is your day job. If you have a day job or you have other responsibilities, you're not gonna have the time to spend 5 hours writing every single morning. It was useful. I often get to a point where I have so much stuff I need to do, so much stuff I want to do, that I end up not doing a lot of it, or I end up wasting time, or I get like struck with this indecision about which parts I should do and which I shouldn't. Whereas having something like this where it's a set schedule where, okay, you have to do this and you have to do this, but you're gonna do this at the specific time, I found that super helpful. And if you're someone who wants to get something done, maybe you're very serious about writing, then it's probably a good idea to pick up a writing schedule of some kind. Maybe it's just spend an hour a day, and that's it. And then no matter what you get on it, like you got something done, right? Even if it's just a few words. It is now 8 o'clock, the final part of the day where we just do whatever we want. Because she doesn't talk about 8 o'clock. It's been quite the day. I already kind of addressed the things that I think were really great about this style of writing schedule and how it worked for me. I did just want to say I had fun with this. This was an enjoyable way to spend a rainy day, and I hope that you've found this fun too. Maybe I inspired you to try this writing schedule for yourself. And if there are any other famous author writing schedules that you want me to try, maybe I will. I have no idea if I'll have the time to, but we'll see what happens. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, get back to writing. Why are you wasting time watching this?